Selamat petang dan salam sejahtera. Good evening, Mr. Pan Kuntat, Executive Director, Monash University, Sunway Campus. Good evening, Professor Mahindran Nair, Vice President Strategy, and Professor Chris Mason, Vice President Academic. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monash University, Sunway Campus. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Professor Christina Lee, Head School of Business, to present her welcome address and introduce our distinguished speaker. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. Okay, I'm not going to say all the salutations anymore because she's done it, okay? But I'm really happy that you're all here today. Welcome to Monash University, Sunway Campus. And this lecture is held to mark the conferment upon Professor Ferdinand A to the higher doctorate degree of publications, Doctor of Economics by Monash University. Now, this degree is very, very special. It is much higher than the ordinary PhD. It seems ordinary now when you think that it's a higher PhD. And it's awarded for work that makes an original, substantial, and distinguished contribution to the knowledge in the field. And the work submitted for the degree normally comprises of publications that have appeared as books or papers in scholarly journals that are then presented in the form of a thesis. The degree recognizes Professor Gould's authoritative standing in his field. Professor Gould joined Monash University Sunway Campus as the Professor of Accounting and Corporate Governance in 2010. He is currently the Director of Research for the School of Business and the Head of Discipline for Accounting and Finance. Professor Gould has a very long career history. His teaching career started at the University of Malaya in 1975 and subsequently served in senior academic positions in different universities. He was the chair in accounting at Griffith University, chair in accounting at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, professor of accounting and corporate governance and the head of School of Accounting and Finance at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So there's quite a lot of universities you've been involved in. Professor Gould's major research interests are in the interdisciplinary application of contracting and agency theories of accounting, auditing, and corporate finance. He has published in leading high-impact journals such as, and wait for this long list, Journal of Financial Economics, Journal of Accounting and Economics, oh, I got it all right, Journal of Accounting Research, Contemporary Accounting Research, Journal of Banking and Finance, Journal of Corporate Finance, and the Accounting Review. In addition to his research articles, he has published books in auditing and co-edited a number of readings entitled like Corporate Governance of East Asian Corporations. Professor Gould has provided consulting services on corporate governance, including consulting on corporate governance reforms for the Hong Kong Corporate Governance Law Reform Commission. He has held honorary professorships in several leading universities in the People's Republic of China. Now, that account is most impressive. Now, okay, now I would like to share with you my impression of Professor Gould, and it's all very good, so don't worry. Now, once you get to know him, you find that he is just a person who loves to learn. He can be a bit forthright sometimes, but that doesn't matter. That's because of his love for knowledge. He just loves to learn. That's what I found out. He loves to acquire knowledge. He loves to move and to change boundaries, and hence his push for interdisciplinary research. But what really defines him is his generosity, I think, and his willingness to share knowledge and ideas, and I've seen this happening. His drive and his commitment to high-quality research is exemplary. His willingness to share is regardless of whether you're able to sing, and he does sing, play the guitar, or appreciate fine wine. So he is He is there. If you're interested to find knowledge, he's there to share with you. So Professor Goh, the School of Business at Monash University, Sunway campus is immensely proud of your achievement. And do you know that he is the first person in Monash to achieve this high doctorate? They had to design a graduation gown just for him to mark that occasion. And it's an impressive looking gown too. So with this, I hand over the podium to Professor Goh to deliver his lecture on corporate political activities in emerging markets, implication for accounting and finance practice. Professor Goh.
Thank you, Professor Lee, Christina Lee. I hope I live up to all the description and expectations about the lecture today. First of all, let me recognize all the dignitaries, the two vice presidents, and Mr. Pang, and of course my friends, quite a lot of them I haven't seen, and so it's nice to see you all. Some of them have come all the way from Hong Kong, Professor Kim and Jifang from City University. I just met them outside, and some of the scholars from University Utara Malaysia. There are just a couple of things I need to go through before I start. One is I'd like to place on record my gratitude and thanks to the School of Business. At that time when the economics was going through, Professor Mahindran and the research office, Donald, and individuals who actually helped me compile my publications. They were Winnie and Dr. Fu, so thank you very much. And then there was the organizing committee, who was chaired by none other than our Dr. Majid. And I was fortunate to have him chairing this committee. So as you can see, everything has gone like clockwork. And his committee, of course, made up of Prof. Jayapalan and a few other people. And so with that, I'll just try to take you through this little journey on corporate political activities in emerging markets. Now, before I start, let me just make it quite clear that this is a big area of research. There are many aspects of it. I've tried to start off by giving you an overview, and then I try to put a thread through some of the different areas of research, and finally discuss some of the empirical evidence that's available in this part of the world. Okay, that's the topic. And well, the whole area of political economy actually has been around for a very long time. It appeared in France, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, L'économie politique, 1615. And basically what this area, this small group of people in France, I'll come to that, physiocrats, what they were trying to do and understand was the laws of production of wealth at the state level. Now remember, this is 1615, around that time, so knowledge was very sparse, and they hadn't developed any good theories. And agriculture, it was an agrarian economy, and agriculture was the mainstay. And so you have some early exponents of political economy. You have people like, as I said, the French physiocrats. The best known of them, I think, is Quesnay, 1694. And Quesnay was talking, the physiocrats were talking about distribution of income among landowners, workers, and capitalists. There were already there concerns about how income is being distributed. And of course, they were already raising issues with regard to the capitalists. So this was essentially a community of ideas that was emphasizing agriculture. There was no other choice because the Industrial Revolution had not started. And so the role of nature. And they argued that only agriculture can produce, another French word, produit, net product. Now, as I alluded to earlier, there's a huge literature. Some of the best journals would be Journal of Political Economy, the European Journal of Political Economy, and so on. So this Journal of Political Economy, I think, has been around for more than 100 years. Now, today, political economy refers to interdisciplinary studies, and perhaps that's hence the attraction to this particular area. It draws on economics, finance, law, and political science. It explains how political institutions and economic systems influence each other. And this is essentially the view of a very well-known author in the field of institutional theory, Olson. And some of the topics that are included in political economy would be electoral systems, economic outcomes, redistributive conflicts in fiscal policies, tax policies, Prof. Jayapalan will be aware of that, origins and changes of political institutions, monopoly, market protection, institutional corruption, and rent seeking. So many of these issues you are familiar with, and for some of you, probably closer to the heart than the rest. Examples of research. So what I'd like to do is just point out that this area is actually, there is lots of avenues for research, because you can ask questions like, do political regimes, for example, affect social and economic development issues? Now let me start off with one of my earlier papers, which was published in the Journal of Empirical Finance. And this paper asked the question, does political economy reduce agency costs? Some evidence from dividend policies around the world. The focus is on dividend policies. This is an important issue in corporate finance. Apart from debt policies, you have dividend policies. And so does political economy affect agency costs and hence would affect dividend policies? And this was a cross-country study. So we were looking at about 40 to 50 countries and trying to find out if there is indeed a relationship between electoral systems and dividend policies. Now, the electoral systems area is an area that's not much looked at by accounting, finance, academics. It's a bit unfortunate because it's a really exciting area of research, and individuals think of accounting and finance at the corporate level. They forget that the political economy, macro issues could have an impact on finance and accounting. So electoral systems affects legal regulation and enforcement. It also will influence the severity of agency problems and hence dividend policies. Now, there are several types. You can classify electoral systems into 2 or 3 types. And the ones that are used, which are quite common, basically is the proportional versus majoritarian electoral system. There is the issue of electoral formula, which is related to how votes are translated into seats. You've got district magnitude, which is the number of seats available, and you've got the ballot structure, which is how citizens cast their votes. So essentially, I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, just to draw your attention so that you can see the differences between proportional and majoritarian systems. Of course, there are hybrids in between. Seats are awarded in proportion of the votes won in each district. Good example is Spain. Now, remember that the majoritarian the issue is plurality. Voters choose among political parties, not candidates for the multiple seats available. And the selectorates determine candidates. Candidates are more likely, as a result, to serve the interests of the party, because the selectorates that determines the candidates. And candidates are prone to have closer links with organized interests. On the other hand, you have the majoritarian electoral system. Voters choose among individuals of a single seat in a district. The candidate with the highest number of votes paid in decentralized fashion. Emphasis is on individual candidates, and candidates are more concerned about individual voters. Now, in that data set, these are the countries, so you don't have to worry too much about the details, but we looked at all these countries. And here is proportionality, and you can see Malaysia is a majoritarian country, electoral system. And we put in several variables like anti-director rights, state-owned enterprises, banks, and so on and so forth. So what do we find? We find that it's the proportional electoral system where there is weaker shareholder protection, but incidentally, stronger employment protection. So straight away, this opens up opportunities to look at human resources issues, And the results show that proportional electoral systems generally have lower corporate dividends, and of course that means the majoritarian system, electoral systems have higher dividends. And some of the research, to give you an idea of the depth and breadth of this type of research, this is a paper in the European Journal of Political Economy. It looks at democracy, dictatorship, and disease, so getting into health issues, and political regimes and HIV/AIDS. And the issue is how political regimes affect health policies related to the treatment of HIV and AIDS. 33 million people were infected in 2007, and over 25 million dead. So economic costs are substantial, and obviously it has implications for economic development, and hence the reason why this particular area attracts some research attention. And so here they are looking at links between political regimes and the use of ARV, or antiretroviral drugs. It's a medical cocktail. You can ask some of the doctors here, like Professor Kulendran, who would be able to explain to you. Also, how different types of electoral systems affect the coverage of HIV treatment. This is, in my mind, an interesting question. Democracy, so they basically make it quite simple. They look at democracy versus autocracy. And democracy, some very simple characteristics. Selection of political leaders are through regulation, free elections, competition among parties, and spending mainly on public. Autocratic, no representative mandate to government, not subject to competitive elections, and spending mainly on elites. And this is the graph taken from the paper. And what's obvious here is that the amount that is being spent, non-democracies, is so much less than for all countries. There's a big difference there. But just developing countries, there is a bigger, almost the same difference actually. So what that does mean is that this is probably being driven by developing countries. Now the research pushes a little bit and looks at, within democracies, is there a difference? So if the moment you talk about democracies, then you can look at majoritarian versus the proportional type of electoral system. So these two authors actually are very clever. They bring together these two issues. Now, in the majoritarian system, there's little regard to minorities. Proportional, the minorities are represented. So they create an institutional environment that supports more AIDS treatment. And what they find is that within democracies, the electoral system kicks in again and has a significant influence on the use of these AIDS treatment. Large amount of money is being spent in the proportional electoral system rather than the majoritarian system. So just to summarize this, two papers delve into the issue of electoral systems and gives us an idea that these electoral systems actually can explain. And the issues that I looked at was just dividend policies, but there are a whole range of areas that's crying out for research to try and understand how electoral systems affect different finance and accounting issues. Excuse me. So, and then this one shows links with health policies. So researchers in the area of health issues, public health, can also successfully consider looking at some of these areas. And the interesting point is that this data is available. If you look at the papers, I'm quite happy to give you the reference. You will find that this data is available. So here's a good opportunity for some quality research. The next one that I want to look at, introduce to you to, is the issue of political economy of exchange rate regimes. Now, exchange rate regimes are important. They do affect economic development, and we don't really understand why certain governments prefer exchange rate. You have some general ideas, but what is it that's influencing the choice of exchange rate? Now, this particular paper uses 5 categories of different types of exchange rates. It also uses 3 categories. I'll just talk about the 3. the float, the intermediate, and the fixed. Now, so they were interested in looking at government ideology. So if you have a right-wing government, perhaps like the Republicans, left-wing government, not really the Democrats, they are not really left-wing in my mind, but that's fine. You will find that there are different characteristics. Right-wing governments, these are some of the characteristics. Protection of property rights are important. They believe in economic freedom, privatization, and deregulation. As you know, when the Republicans were in the US, they were trying to get rid of any kind of regulation. They wanted, the dictum there was freedom, economic freedom. Low inflation, they didn't bother about employment. High employment is fine, and the choice was a fixed exchange rate and less monetary policy with fixed exchange rate, and it's more characteristics of developed countries. The left-wing type of ideology would push for government intervention, less economic freedom, some regulation. They will tolerate some level of inflation, excuse me, and there's less unemployment, so you have flexible exchange rates. And then the reason for the flexible exchange rate would facilitate conduct of your own monetary policy. So this paper, Journal of Political Economy, there's more to it, but I've just given you just the crux of the paper. Now, so today's talk is a dimension of political economy, and I'm focusing on corporate political activity, the issue of whether the government should regulate or interfere in the economy. Of course, one goes back and can cite Adam Smith's invisible hand. What he talked about was the private pursuit of self-interest he believed would lead by an invisible hand to the well-being of all. And, but the pursuit of self-interest does not lead to the well-being of all. We know that. Good example are some of the countries that have deregulated. So it is not what economists or people in the finance area call a zero-sum game, which is what one person gains, one person's gain is what the others lose. It is actually a negative sum game. Gains to winners are less than losses to the losers, and a good example is the banking crisis in the US. So what happened was a few of the bankers got extreme, became very, very rich, but the losses were so heavy, particularly those who were involved in investment as well as those who had mortgages, house mortgages, and it was, in fact, the US has still not recovered from that particular crisis. So that was a negative sum game because the losses were far outstripped the gains that these bankers make. Of course, the bankers made quite a lot of money, but that's how capitalist free societies operate, and that's why you need regulations. I'm a great believer of regulations. And now Adam